if you were like, hypothetically, you had to give your job to someone else, like to take over for you, what would be like the main thing that you would be looking for in someone young who wanted to be a coach?
Oh, that's a great question because I got younger guys up under me and I always tell them my job is for me to mentor you to make sure that you can take my job. And when I tell them that, they always look at me like I'm crazy. Like, why do you want to give up his job? I'm not saying take my job literally. I mean, if you had the opportunity to do what I do, can you do it?
I'm Liz Landen, and I'm here with the assistant coach of the Milwaukee Bucks, Greg Buckner. It's so nice to meet you, Greg.
Nice to meet you, Liz. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for volunteering your time in support of career.org. We're really appreciative of what you do. Today, my goal is to learn more about your career as an assistant coach for the NBA, the road that you took to get there, and some advice that you have for students like me and how I can get to success. So I'm going to first start off by asking you, for those of who don't know what it is that you do, for you to just give a brief explanation of what you do as an NBA coach.
Yeah, well, I've been coaching for 12 years now. Now I'm a defensive coordinator for Milwaukee Bucks, which is the guy who oversees the defense who is not playing well right now, but it's a work in progress. And having a good time trying to learn the new guys. I just got this job here in Milwaukee here in June, so implementing a new system. It's coming along a little slowly than we thought, but the guys are willing to get better at it and learn it, and sooner or later we'll be a top flight defense in the NBA.
That's awesome. So what does your day-to-day look like?
Oh boy. My day-to-day is pretty typical since I've been coaching. I kind of get up normally about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. Just depends on how far I'm living from the arena. Right now, I'm about 35 minutes from the arena, so I get up pretty early, go into the office, get my coffee. At that time, we all need coffee. And then I open up the computer, start to watch film either from ourselves from the night before, a couple games before, or our next opponent, which could be, obviously, the Lakers, anybody could be. I watch film on those guys to kind of prepare for the day. Then we have coaches meetings. Normally can be a little spirited. Everybody wants to, have their say so it can be aggressive at times, but it's fun. It allows you to see help you see from another point of view, which is good. So we do that normally for about an hour, and then we go on the court and do practice for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then the guys do post-shooting, post-film work with the guys, and then you're home and you probably watch more film when you get home.
Awesome. So I know you travel a lot to go to different games and stuff. Does that ever become an issue, or is it something that you enjoy doing?
Well, so I played in the NBA for 10 years. So right out of college, I went straight to the NBA as a player. And I was a young player when I got into the NBA. I say a young man, I should say. And so that's all I know. And I went to college. I left home from about 8 hours drive, a 3-4 hour flight. I left home when I was 17. So all I know is being on the road. And then I took a couple years off and I retired from playing to just stay at home, and I was miserable. The traveling piece of it is kind of how I set my clock, my internal clock, my body clock, all those things like that. In the off season, you get to relax and stay home a little bit, but being a competitor, being a coach, you're ready to get back on that road and try to compete and try to win a championship.
Yeah. As long as you're having fun, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And compete. A lot of people ask me that question, does traveling get on your nerves? It's like, at times, don't get me wrong, sometimes in December and January when it's cold and you don't want to be out and about and don't want to be getting off a plane in the snow. But for the most part, I would not know what to do with myself if I didn't have traveling with basketball, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
So yeah, you played in the NBA for what, 10 years, you said?
Yeah.
How was your experience before that? Did you always know you wanted to play basketball? Did you even know you wanted to be a coach, or did it just kind of happen like that?
Yeah, well, I always knew I wanted to play basketball. Now, I didn't always want to play in the NBA, to be quite honest with you. I wanted to use basketball to get me a scholarship because, I came from a poor family. If I didn't have basketball, I wouldn't go into college. So I knew I had to have basketball to get an opportunity to go to college. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to be the first in my family to graduate from college. So that's what I used basketball for. And then when I got to college, I found out that I was pretty good, better than I even thought I was. And then when I got to college, I started to focus on playing in the NBA, and that was my goal. And I got that opportunity to play there for 10 years, and it was a unbelievable experience. Obviously some ups and downs with any career you choose, any path you choose, is going to be ups and downs. And one of my downtime is at the end of my career, and I got traded to a team that wasn't that good, very young, but it allowed me to be a leader, allowed me to be have a voice, and allowed me to teach. And that's when I realized that I wanted to be a coach. Before then, I had no interest in being a coach. I actually wanted to be a history teacher or a history professor when I got finished playing basketball. But being with the young guys, teaching them the little things, ins and outs about the NBA and about basketball and about life, it was just a natural path for me to kind of gravitate to.
Awesome. So how was like the transition from playing in the NBA to becoming a coach? Like, was it super different, like being on the other side of things, or was it kind of just like you knew what you were doing already?
It was different being on the other side. And, I still had, because I started coaches 2 years after I played. I retired for 2 years, didn't do anything but coach my son playing AAU basketball. So I was already coaching, just not at the NBA level. So I knew what I was getting into, but I didn't understand how much of a different lens that the coaches and the players looked at the game of basketball, and how coaches would always say this guy couldn't do this guy could do this, that, and me being in that locker room gave me a different perspective on even coaching. It's like, no, I don't think they're thinking that way. So it actually helped me out to be a player and then get on the coaching side. I would get frustrated at times. I would get upset at times with the other coaches that was talking about the players or saying things that they couldn't and can't do when I didn't agree. But as you get older and get more mature into coaching, you understand what other people are saying, and you kind of take a couple steps back and not look at it from a player's perspective, but look from a coach's perspective and how you can help that player.
Mm-hmm. So would you say that it's like almost harder to go from playing professionally to being a coach, because like you kind of have to switch your mindset, or do you think it's easier because you already have like kind of like an inside?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's a little bit of both. I think there is some difficulties that non-players don't have to deal with. I mean, they're kind of used to doing things a certain way. They look at it from a coach's aspect from the entire time. And it takes a little bit from an ex-player to turn his lenses from a player. Like, you don't play no more. Like, you're a coach now. You're a teacher now. You're not the student. So it takes a little bit of a different mindset. Takes a while for you to get to it, but the quicker you get to it, the better you get to enjoy coaching, because you know what you're there for.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so going off of that, do you think that someone who doesn't play basketball could end up being an NBA coach?
Oh, absolutely. There's I bet you there's probably 60% of the coaches in the NBA didn't play in the NBA. And it may be even higher than that, to be quite honest with you. So you surely can do it. That's probably the way you can do it, because there's only so many NBA basketball players in general, and so that pool is very small. The non-NBA player pool is much larger than the kiddie pool that the NBA players play in. So you definitely have a chance. It's all about not what you know, because all of us know how to teach basketball. All of us know how to coach basketball. It's about who you know, to be quite honest with you, when you don't play, because you have to have a connection to get into the fraternity of coaching in an NBA.
Yeah. So going off of that, so for people like in my age in college, or like kids in high school who don't know how to play basketball, but aren't very good at basketball, what's some advice you have for them to how to get to that point?
To be a coach, I think you have to look at it differently. Like, you have to study the game. You can't just go up and down and play the game as an athlete. You have to use your brain a little bit more as a basketball player if you want to be a coach. And you gotta, to be quite honest with you, you gotta know that at an early age, that this is what I want to do if you don't end up in the NBA, because there's certain paths you can take as a youngster. Like, you can go to camps, you can go do internships with the video room and the front office and things like that. You go introduce yourself to different people in summer league in Las Vegas and build those relationships, stay in touch with people. But you have to do that young, because you don't get paid much when you first start coaching. You get paid peanuts, to be quite honest with you. So it's hard for you to have a family and get into coaching at the bottom, because you just can't survive. You just, you'd be living in the arena and using their bathrooms and things like that if you did that. So you got to get at it young, get into it young, and make those connections as soon as possible.
Okay, cool. Also, like before you decided that you wanted to be a coach, was there anyone that you looked up to and followed in their footsteps in making your way to do that?
As coaching or as playing?
Both, either one.
Yeah, well, I think I did look up to somebody as a player. He was a neighbor of mine. He stayed right across the street. He was 5 years older than me. Went to the same college that I went to, and he made it to the NBA. And that was one of the reasons why when I was in high school, because I grew up in a small town, that I never had the my goal was never to make it to the NBA because I always felt like, two kids growing up on the same block, right across the street from each other in this small town, both of us not going to the NBA. So I'm going to take this advantage, take this opportunity to get a free education and go from there. And I did look up to him. He would come back home. He would work out with us. He would tell us the little things and how to become a better basketball player. And so he did mentor me and it helped out a lot. But to be honest with you, I didn't have a guy that I looked up to coaching because I never thought I'd get into coaching. It just kind of fell in my lap. So I didn't have that mentor trying to get into coaching. But once I got to coaching, Kevin McHale helped me a lot. Chris Finch helped me a lot. JB Bickerstaff, Bernie Bickerstaff. People helped you along the way once you get into it that you look up to as time goes on.
That's great. Is there anyone now like that you still look up to as
No,
a
I'm
coach?
old now. Yeah. No, I mean, I do take bits and pieces from other people from afar and from other people that I'm close to. I'm a very curious person. I've always have been. I always ask questions. So I ask everybody who's been in the seat or who is in the seat that I want to be in, which is a head coach in the NBA, how you take advantage of this, what was your pitfalls, things like that. And it's not like that one person. I kind of use all of my friends and even some guys that I don't know really well. I ask them questions about, okay, what would you do here? How would you do this? How would you build culture here? And all those different things. And even guys outside of the sport of basketball, I ask those questions because I think you could learn from other sports as well.
Cool. So, what would you say is your biggest piece of advice for students like me, whether it's how to find a mentor or like where to start for not even people who want to be an NBA coach, but just like a coach in general?
Yeah, I think to be a coach in general, I think the biggest thing is obviously the sport. So you got to study the sport. The biggest piece about what hurts a potential coach or helps a potential coach is how can you communicate? How can you get people that learn differently to understand what you're trying to get through? Like, so you have to be able to teach in different ways. That's the first thing. But I think that's the easy part. If you're willing to be a coach, that's the easy part. You want to do that piece. And the next piece is like you have to make connections. Like I know in this world now, everybody wants to get on social media, which is a way to make a connection. But when you get into coaching, like you may use social media, whether it be, you know, Snapchat, what else is out there? Instagram and LinkedIn and things like that. LinkedIn will be better if you're trying to get into coaching, but you got to get into those people's circle some kind of way. And most of the time to get in the NBA, you got to be in Vegas doing the summer league and make those rounds. And it may take you 2 or 3 years, and then after you make the connection, you have to keep connecting with him, have to keep reaching out to him throughout the season because once the season gets going, you forget who you met in the summer if they don't reach out to you. I mean, they may meet you 5 straight years and you know the face, but you don't know the person. And they're not going to hire you if they don't know the person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you got to let them know who you are in order to get a job.
Okay, cool. So like in terms of like strategy wise, like just to be persistent.
Yeah, you got to get on people's nerves. You got to get on people's nerves, and because people like if you get on their nerves, you really. If you get on my nerves, I know that you really want it. Now, I may not be able to help you at the time, but I may know somebody down the road that can help you, and that's the thing. It's like now, and when I say help you, I may able to get you in front of him or her. Now you got to take advantage of that opportunity. You got to make sure you're ready when you get in front of that person. You know what I mean? Because you're gonna have to sell yourself. You may only have 3 minutes. And then you have to do something to catch their eye. Your resume, the way you talk, or the way you can teach something has to catch their eye in order for them to want to give you an opportunity.
Okay, cool. So like if you were like hypothetically you had to give your job to someone else like to take over for you, what would be like the main thing that you would be looking for in someone young who wanted to be a coach?
Oh, that's a great question because I got younger guys up under me and I always tell them my job is for me to mentor you to make sure that you can take my job. And when I tell them that, they always look at me like I'm crazy. Like, why do you want to give up his job? I'm not saying take my job literally. I mean, if you had the opportunity to do what I do, can you do it? So I think the biggest thing I would want you to do and be able to do is lead and be humble. Can you be humble? Can you be open to suggestions? Can you be willing to learn a different way? Can you be willing to teach a different way? And more importantly, do you know your stuff? Are you professional? Can the head coach trust you at doing what he asked you to do? And if he can, you'll probably be, successful in his business.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's super helpful. I just wanted to thank you again for meeting with me today. There are tons of students just like me that'll greatly benefit from this conversation. So once again, I'm really appreciative. And thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your season.
Thank you for having me, and I hope I helped you out a lot.